What if I told you that the thoughts that you think aren't yours? Hi, everybody. My name is Angelica. I am I am the genius behind Infinite Love Healing, and my I just want to like talk about this a little bit because it's coming up a lot, and I've done I've done quite a bit of extensive healing in the past week. With this full moon in Aries like hitting, and it really spiked me into some really deep healing, some tower moments, some deep purging, and it actually which was actually amazing because it led me to an amazing fucking healer that's been around forever, and I hadn't even discovered them before. And the clarity that's starting to come in and starting to really ground is pretty fucking incredible for me. And this whole concept of your thoughts not being yours, I've heard this, I've experienced it. I've even, let's just get into it, right? I've heard it and everything, and I've experienced it, but now it's really starting to come in, and now I'm really feeling called to share it. So here's the thing. We have certain things and certain groups that are negatively associated, negatively oriented, that, you know, seek to seize control of Earth and all of its inhabitants. And there is a certain bandwidth, frequency bandwidth, vibrational bandwidth that we are kept in by this group. In all of society, there are technologies that we don't even know exist, way more advanced than the smartphone that I'm filming this on. Way more advanced. And this bandwidth is just one of it's almost, I almost don't want to use this terminology, but it's what it's used for. It's frequency, vibrational weaponry. And these weapons are placed in neighborhoods, and, you know, to keep the consciousness, our consciousness, from expanding past a certain bandwidth. So basically anything negatively oriented, so to keep us in depression, fear, scarcity, hate, anger, rage, disgust, judgment, criticisms. These kind of frequencies. And if you look closely and you just observe your neighborhood, you may be able to perceive the certain bandwidth that your neighborhood is kind of kept in, I guess you could say. And what does this have to do with your thoughts not being yours? I'm getting there. So I've actually come across this twice and this has been consciously twice. I don't know if there has been another time where I've come across this, but there are, like I said, there are technologies that exist that I guess the normal human is not aware of. Is like, if they seen it, they'd be like, oh, that shit's in the movies. That doesn't exist. But to the critical thinker, to, I guess, to the awakened human, spiritually awakened, no judgments. This isn't casting judgment. This is just using labels and terminology that you may understand. To the awakened human, to one that is maybe spiritually aware, energetically aware, we know better. And like I said, I've come across this. There's a certain technology that I've come across, and it's an implant. And now implants can be, there's a lot of different types of implants. From what I feel in my own spirit, I've come across a certain one twice. One I actually removed from myself, and one I removed from a client. And it was the same type. It was the same type. The implant that I removed from me, it was attached all the way from up here, all the way down into my hip. And this type of implant that I'm speaking of generates thoughts. It actually generates, if you turn it on, it generates a frequency that the human knows as anxiety. And that's its kind of stasis. That's the baseline that it runs at. Anxiety. So it creates anxiety in the human. And this type of implant is actually inserted at the base of a root trauma, of the root of a trauma. And when it's turned on, it's already turned on. When they place it there, then that's anxiety. Anxiety around the trauma. So as to basically mask it. So you're too anxious to go looking for it. Even if you were into spirituality, even if you were into shadow work and personal development work, it would create this sensation within you that's like, I ain't touching that shit. Not in a million fucking years. Not with a 10-foot pole. And the baseline is anxiety. But what this device does in addition is turn on its baseline anxiety, but it's inserted at the base, at the root of a trauma, right? And so that trauma already has emotions around it. It already has thoughts. It already has, the feelings, the emotions. It already has stuff around it. And so what it does is it takes the thoughts around the trauma, and then it amplifies. It'll amplify the thoughts, which will create emotions, right? It'll create emotional triggers. It'll create, us perceiving. It'll create this whole thing within the human. So thoughts, and then thoughts create the emotions, and the emotions create the action. So, and when we're in an emotionally triggering feeling, when we're emotionally triggered, we don't necessarily behave or act in a way that we typically would. So this baseline anxiety inserted at the root of a trauma, where who knows how severe that trauma was, it's already creating anxiety. It's creating thoughts. It's generating thoughts. It's like you think a thought and it will amplify it. This technology exists. It's weaponized against humans. And they can be energetic. They can be actually physical implants. And from that generation, the generating of the thoughts, that creates big trauma, even more trauma within. It can create more fragmentation, especially if we keep from that trauma, from the amplification of the trauma of the wound. That creates even more. So we from that place, right, that being amplified, we can create even more trauma for ourselves. We can create more situations that create more trauma and more fragmentization of our consciousness. And when the human consciousness experiences trauma that it cannot resolve, it fragments. It splits off like a river. Consciousness does not die. It either splits or it transforms. It can split. It doesn't die. You can't kill consciousness, but you can split it. And that's what happens to our consciousness. When we're wounded, when we feel a trigger, or not a trigger, when we experience a trauma. And medical science has proved that with a trauma, with an emotional trauma, it registers in the brain as a physical trauma. So it still registers the same. It doesn't, your brain can't tell the difference, whether it's emotional or it's a physical trauma. It's the same thing. So when we go to try to like think about these things or process them, you know, we already have that registering as, fuck, this is a trauma. I don't want to touch this. You bring an implant into the mix, and then you have somebody who may be really, and if you have someone that is already resistant, they don't want to go looking for that shit. Because there's been an amplification for who knows how long that's maybe created even more trauma. And so here's the thing about what I was talking about with the thoughts. These also generate like thoughts from the thoughts that are already there, that you're already thinking. It amplifies and creates more chaos, more confusion, and it even amplifies it in a way that it's like, even sometimes makes it seem bigger than what it is, so that we don't. It deters us from wanting to go look, from wanting to process, from wanting to heal, because then it's like, oh shit, there's something there. Ouch, that does not feel good. And there's all of this stuff. And then, you know, there's not, we don't just have like emotional trauma. We then have like, not saying that this is for everybody, right? Because it's not. But then on top of that, if we have an implant, it's creating something to be way bigger than what it was. So we don't go looking. And if we don't go looking, that keeps us trapped in the trauma. If we don't go processing, that keeps us stuck in that loop of thoughts, of emotional trauma, of emotional triggers. And then it perpetuates the cycle. And I wanted to share this with you because it's a thing. My abilities, my healing abilities, I want to share this. I want to share this a little bit more, but my healing abilities were tremendously kicked online this year. And it was through and because of, you know, my interaction with plant medicine, that it really kicked everything into high gear. And since then, I've been perceiving so much. I'm just activated. And so I have these energetic transmissions that are appearing out of nowhere. All of a sudden I can channel. I've cleared a lot of stuff with the plant medicines, and that activated it. And now, from the information that I'm receiving, working with clients, I wanted to present this to those who are ready to hear it. This isn't to instill fear. This is really just an awareness. We're human. It's time to step into our knowingness. This world is if you look into quantum mechanics, quantum physics, this world is a hologram. So we have to start looking deeper than just what's physical, because what's physical is actually 99% or 99.99999 or whatever percent space. So if it's not real, it's got to be something. And energy, everything is energy. So if you can read energy, you can start to discern this world for the hologram it really is, for the matrix that it really is. And then you can start seeing past all of the veils that have been covering our eyes for millennia. They are coming off. And like I said, it's not to instill fear. This is just as for you, to help educate you as I am learning. So may this help you and serve in the highest and best way. And remember that sometimes your thoughts may not be yours. So if you have a lot of racing thoughts, and not that it's necessarily an implant, but those thoughts, there are certain technologies that are being used that generate and keep humans within a certain bandwidth and perpetuating war, disease, sickness, illness, hate, anger, intolerance. It's time to be informed, and it's time to wake the fuck up. And I say this to empower you and to open your eyes to a new reality that is waiting for you, and to step into it in an empowered way. I love you. May this serve in the highest and best way. Thank you for watching. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and always, always think for yourself. Be a critical thinker. Use your own intuition and discernment, even with what I say, with what anybody says. So until next time, blessings, and I love you.